Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Do your viewers generally find it entertaining to watch two guys sitting on cameras doing nothing while you just pontificate?
Folks, welcome to another episode of The Other UFO Show. Dr. J, Dr. V, and a special guest. We'll just call him Mr. T. So we're coming from Lilo's in Lake Worth Beach.
We have left our secret, undisclosed location. We are in beautiful downtown Lake Worth Beach at Lilo's Street Food Bar and Restaurant.
It's a little promo there, even though they don't support us.
Kind enough to let us use their facilities for the show.
That part they do. In the beginning, we said that we would bring real people with real stories.
Yeah, we're tired of making stuff up.
Or finding things from 1970s magazines.
Yeah.
So here we are with Mr. T. And a few months ago, or maybe even a year ago, we were just talking with Mr. T about, have you ever had a UFO encounter? Let me go further back than that, actually. Let me go back to, when was the UFO conference, James?
A few years ago.
2018 or 2017?
2017.
2017.
Yeah.
And James told me, he said, I'm going to have a skeptic come. And I was like, oh, good. I like skepticism. Skeptical myself. I like to look at things with critical thinking but still have an open mind at things. And I remember when
Elvis is still alive. Let's get that right up front now.
Yes, but on the moon.
Oh.
Set. The moon set.
Okay.
Yeah. Where they filmed the moon landing. Anyway, after the show, I met Tom for the first time. And after the video that I had shown, he said to me, he goes, that was interesting. And that's what I like. I like to have it mysterious and interesting and an open discussion of things, even no matter which way you believe in UFOs.
Is this what I was still saying?
Yeah.
I don't remember saying
You don't remember saying that? Yeah. He said it was interesting, He said you'd have seen some things, but you thought that was interesting. Interesting video that I had. If you ever want to see that video, you got to look for the Phoenix Lights one that we did a long time ago. Well, 2 years ago, I think, when we first started.
When we did the UFO conference show, I did that like Dr. Phil, just walking around, I said, I don't want to hear about it. You heard on YouTube or saw on the internet. You have a good UFO story. You and like your family, and I just walk around with a microphone. And all night long, I was waiting for Tom here to stand up, ready. Nothing. I just thought, because we had some interesting stories.
A year later, I think it was, maybe a year and a half later, we're just casually sitting at Lilo's again, having a conversation, and Tom says, I'm paraphrasing you, Tom, by the way, this time. I don't remember the exact words. But you're like, I think you said, no, you've never really seen a UFO, but you saw something strange one time. And we'll let you tell the story from now on.
Well, like you said, I don't know it was a UFO. I don't think of it that way. But technically it was, because it was an object. It was up in the sky. And I had no idea what it was. I was in back in the 70s at some point. I was lying outside on the hood of my parents' station wagon, just looking at the sky.
Where were you living at the time?
McGraw, New York,
Okay.
upstate New York. Place the town geographically. McGraw is in the exact geometric center of New York State.
Okay.
If you were to draw a square around the state and do the intersecting lines,
Yes.
it would land on McGraw.
Right. Where you were living, would that be considered like a little tiny small town, or were you out in the country?
McGraw was 1 square mile in area, most of which was uninhabited.
Everybody with you?
There was not even my beagle. And at one point, this thing came into view in the sky. Shaped about like that, except it was all black, like a stealth bomber, and was really, really high up in the sky.
Was there any sound from this thing?
No. But again, it looked like it was really like 10, 20, 1,000 feet up. Like, it looked about that big to me. And it was just going, south to north, and then all of a sudden started going north-northwest in the blink of an eye. And it just kind of went off, the horizon. So it probably wouldn't have been, what?
Do you remember if it was a cloudy day or a clear day?
Oh, it was a clear day.
Clear day.
Not a cloud in the sky.
Okay.
Just beautiful blue. And the sun wasn't in my eye. It was like off to the side. So there was nothing obstructing my view.
Speaking of sun, was there any glinting of light off of it or anything when it maneuvered
No.
or changed direction?
Nope. The way it moved, I mean, it was just going along, and then all of a sudden it was going that way.
And the way you state that it changed direction, it was not like a turn like an aircraft.
No, it didn't turn like that. It was going this way, and then all of a sudden it was going that way. And it was just the oddest thing.
Yeah.
It was right there. I watched it for a long time, several minutes.
Yeah.
It took several minutes to fly into my view, do that quick turn, and fly out of view in broad daylight, early afternoon.
Had you, when you were at that age, you said you were about 14 years old? Or
I was in my teens.
in your teens? What was your mindset, you think, at that time about UFOs? Had you heard about them?
Oh, I heard about it.
Yeah.
And found things like In Search Of interesting.
That was a good show.
Yeah.
And my brothers bought books about UFOs, so they're in the bedroom, and I would read them. But it was more like it was an interesting thing to think about, rather than to just believe.
Around that time, what was your concept of what a UFO would be? Would you?
I was, the general flying saucer thing you would see in the day the Earth stood still.
Had you ever heard of anything called black triangles or anything like that? How about afterwards, do you think, when you may have heard of black triangles?
Oh, only in the last few years. I wouldn't use that term. Like I said, it looked more like a stealth bomb.
There was no stealth bomber in the 1970s.
Not even testing,
It was,
I don't think.
Even if it was on the drawing boards, that would have been all tested out at Area 51. Northrop didn't get started on the B-2 till the early 80s. And they didn't unveil it until 1989.
Yeah.
The F-117, the stealth fighter, that came along sooner. But again, that was tested out in Area 51. They wouldn't
Right.
bring it upstate.
Right.
It had the wings off to the side like that, and it looked like the Star Trek insignia.
The late 70s is when the triangle sighting started in Hudson Valley,
Really?
up in New York State.
Yeah, we surprised you,
Unsolved
huh?
Mysteries did a segment on that.
Yeah.
And that continued into the early 80s. I mean, lots of people saw it. As far as the military,
I never heard that.
You never heard about Hudson Valley sighting?
No.
So, yeah. Do we know approximately when in the 1970s that was, Dr. J?
Late started what, 78, 79.
78, 79, okay.
Years.
Typically, those triangles are seen rather low to the earth, moving slowly,
It was
and
moving
sometimes
slow.
with 3 lights on them, like one on each corner.
No, just a solid black.
Solid black. And you just said it was moving slowly?
Well, it was pretty high up,
Uh-huh.
so it would have looked like it was going slowly anyway.
Right. Yeah. But interesting with the the black triangles on the Hudson Valley. That could be around the same time, maybe, perhaps.
Well, what I find
Late
surprising
70s.
about that is, I've been talking about these things for the last 40 years
Uh huh.
to whoever it's conversationally it comes up. UFOs come up.
Right.
All my life I've said, well, I kind of saw this one thing, and no one has ever mentioned that. Well, they had the
Hudson Valley
triangles flying in the Hudson Valley being recorded.
Yeah.
I've always said I'm wary of UFO sightings anywhere near an airport.
Mhm.
Whether it's civilian airports, military,
Where can you go where you don't have an airport?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what Tom was describing is nothing we had flying back then.
Doesn't sound like it's near an airport anyway, even perhaps it's
Sort of
military.
Bell back in the day, you know.
Syracuse International, maybe, but
Pretty far away. It wouldn't be like a flight path. You don't see jets flying over your home or anything there. Often. Not too often.
well, you see a tram.
Right.
No
Contrail.
contrail.
No contrail.
At all.
No contrail at all. Okay.
But I remember Art Bell.
Yeah.
Who started Coast to Coast AM. I listened to that show when he used to call it Dreamland when he first got started. But he and his wife saw a triangle-shaped UFO out in about a desert.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't live that far from Area 51. I think he said, okay, you know, you're living that close to Area 51, you've seen flying triangles, don't be surprised.
Right. I had myself, not personally an experience with a black triangle, but somebody who had seen one, and they immediately came to me. So I was working up in the Wasilla area, Wasilla, Alaska, and this lady that worked with me makes a commute from Anchorage out to Wasilla to work every morning. And on her way, she passes Ramstein Air Force. Sorry, that's in Germany, not Ramstein Air Force Base. Elmendorf Air
That's quite a
Force
commute.
Base. That's quite a commute. That's right. Takes her all week.
Yeah.
So she was passing Elmendorf Air Force Base, had just gotten past it, and she said she looked out the window and up in the sky, not too much over the highway, she saw a black triangle there, you know, no lights on, but you could see it with the sky, you know, background being the sky and that, and see it there, and it was just following down the highway at a slow pace. And she said, you know, she had to keep her eye on the highway, especially, you know, you got to make sure you don't run into a moose or anything like that. So she looks back down, she looks back up, and it's gone, you know. But she swears she had seen it. And first thing she did when she came into the office that day, she came and got me. She goes, Vince, come here. And then she told me about seeing that black triangle coming down, heading. It's kind of a north direction on that highway.
What year was that, do you remember?
Oh, that would have been, if I do the calculations right, about 2004, somewhere around that time. And perhaps even 2005, but like in the changing of the years there, like December, January of 2005, probably. December 2004, January 2005, somewhere around that time. About that same time, I was always listening to Coast Radio at the same time, you know, as well. And I believe, I don't recall the guest, but I think if I remember correctly, he was supposed to be a retired master sergeant from the Air Force. And he had claimed that he had, you know, been involved with working on projects, and he was not ever talking about it being, you know, alien craft, but he talked about black triangles that they had made, which were based on magnetism, and that they were actually pyramids, and not just triangles, but pyramids, and that it was made of sections. So it was an experimental craft to replace paratroopers jumping out of like C-130s or whatever toward the ground. And this ship, all these smaller pyramids made up the larger pyramid ship. Be like a troop supposedly in each one of those, and they would be able to, you know, undetected come into an area and then disperse. And they would all be able to disperse and then land each one of those separate pods, triangle pods, down, releasing a troop.
All right, well, you said 2004, 2005.
Okay.
Around there. That's when the Air Force was already stocking up on F-22 Raptors.
Uh-huh.
And there are a couple of squadrons of them at Elmendorf in Alaska because of its proximity to the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
It's the hottest plane in the world, hottest fighter plane in the world. And looking at, if you saw one flying overhead, it looks almost diamond shaped. If you've never seen an F-22 before and watched it go, however, you would hear it.
And the other problem is that when people describe black triangles, they're usually not describing a craft looking thing, like an airplane looking thing. People are pretty easily detect. They're talking about almost something that's like a blimp. It's large, it's low to the ground, and it's slow moving. And they're like, it is not an airplane. It's a large, just triangle.
Well, that's how they described the Phoenix lights back in 1997.
Yeah.
Oh, it was flares. No, we saw this. It was covering the stars.
It was covering the stars, and it was hundreds of feet wide.
They described it more boomerang shape.
Right.
Apparently, this is not like other black triangle sightings.
Well, it wasn't an object of your imagination, that's for sure.
No. I don't know what it was.
Right.
Right?
It was up in the sky,
Yep.
And it was unusual.
and it was unusual.
Well, instead of unidentified, we could start calling them unusual flying objects. Things, you know.
So
So
that's why you say, do you believe in UFOs? I don't have to. UFOs exist. The big mystery is, what are they?
Exactly.
And Tom was like, gee, today the Earth stood still, flying saucer, but you saw a UFO.
Yep. We say we tell everybody to stop looking down at your phones and start looking up to the skies like that. So you gotta you kind of go along with it, right? Ready?
Right.
On 3, 2, 1. Stop looking down at your phones and start looking up to the skies.